The rain was a constant whisper against the windowpane of the small temporary apartment I was renting. Outside, the Puget Sound was a bruised grey, mirroring the colour of my soul. How quickly does the world turn? One moment, you're standing on solid ground, building a life brick by painstaking brick, a home, a family, a future. The next, the foundation crumbles beneath you and you're left adrift in a cold, unfamiliar sea. That's what it felt like anyway, being adrift, being cold. My name is Ethan. I'm 35, or I was then. Just a few weeks ago I was a husband, a father figure to a daughter I loved more than life itself, a man who thought he knew his place in the world. Before that, I was a high school football coach, pouring my passion into building a team, shaping young lives. A knee injury ended that career prematurely, shunting me into a logistics job that paid the bills but lacked the fire. Still, I had Clara. I had Lily. We had a life. Lily. My Lily, she's 10. Not my blood, but mine in every way that matters. Clara and I adopted her when she was a toddler. We'd started the legal process to formalize my adoption of her, to make it absolute, even if something happened to Clara. It was something we both agreed on, something that felt right, a promise whispered between us about forever. But life gets busy. Paperwork sits. Promises, I'd learned, can be fragile things. Our life felt comfortable, maybe too comfortable. We had our routines, our inside jokes, the easy rhythm of a family unit. There were moments, looking back, a subtle distance from Clara, a preoccupation I dismissed as work stress, or just the ebb and flow of a long marriage. We'd been together 8 years. 8 years felt like an eternity, a fortress built against the world. I was wrong. It was a sandcastle. The storm hit without warning, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention to the gathering clouds. It started innocently enough. Lily had left her tablet on the kitchen counter. I picked it up to put it away, and a notification popped up. A message preview, something about last night and can't wait. My gut twisted. It wasn't the kind of message you'd expect between friends. Curiosity, or maybe a primal fear I hadn't acknowledged, clawed at me. I opened the messaging app. It wasn't just one message, it was a string going back weeks. Photos, plans, words that should never have been exchanged between my wife and another man. His name was David. The world tilted. The air left my lungs. I scrolled, my hands trembling, a cold sweat breaking out. My head swam. This wasn't happening. Not to us, not to me, not to the life I had built for Lily. I don't remember how long I stood there, the tablet heavy in my hand, the rain still whispering outside. Hours? Minutes? Time ceased to exist. When Clara came home, she found me on the couch, tablet still in my lap, Jack the corgi whimpering at my feet, sensing the shift in the air. My face must have told her everything. The confrontation was a blur of accusations, denials, tears, hers and mine. She tried to minimize it, to deflect, to even turn it back on me. "You've been so distant," she'd said, the oldest line in the book. My distance? I was working harder than ever, trying to build a secure future for us. I hadn't been distant in my heart. I hadn't been distant with Lily. I just needed the truth, all of it. But she wouldn't give it to me. Evasive, defensive, a wall going up where my wife used to be. The woman I loved, the mother of my daughter, was a stranger, and that stranger had just set fire to everything we had. The fortress was gone. The sandcastle had washed away. I was adrift. Leaving was instinct. I grabbed a duffel bag, stuffed some clothes in, leashed Jack, and walked out. I couldn't breathe the same air she did. I called Marcus, my best friend since college. He didn't ask questions, just gave me his address and told me the spare key was under the mat. Marcus lived in a small house closer to Seattle, a bit of a drive from our place near the Sound. The drive felt endless, the rain a relentless soundtrack to my despair. The next few days were hell, a haze of pain, dry heaving over Marcus's toilet, staring blankly at walls, replaying every moment, every conversation, searching for clues I'd missed. How could I have been so blind? Marcus was a rock. He didn't offer platitudes, just quiet presence, making sure I ate, walking Jack, listening when I needed to talk, sitting in silence when I didn't. He saw the wreck I was and just was there. The pick-me phase was the most humiliating. Despite the betrayal, the anger, the sheer devastation, there was this desperate, pathetic part of me that still wanted her, still wanted the life we had. I sent her texts, emails, begging her to explain, to fight for us, to just be the woman I thought she was. She was inconsistent. Moments of seeming remorse followed by coldness, or worse, hints that she was still in contact with David. It was emotional whiplash, designed, I now see, to keep me dangling. Shame burned hotter than the pain of the betrayal itself. How could I be so weak? It was during one of these desperate dives into her digital footprint, looking for answers she wouldn't give, that I found it. A social media profile for David, and linked to him, a profile for his wife. A wife he was still very much married to, with 2 kids. The affair wasn't just a betrayal of me, it was a betrayal of another woman, another family. It added a layer of disgust to my pain. This wasn't a mistake, it was a pattern of calculated deceit. It solidified something in me. This couldn't be fixed. Not with her. The decision to file for divorce was agonizing, but necessary. It felt like admitting defeat, like signing the death certificate for a life I desperately wanted to save. Contacting a lawyer, filling out the paperwork, every step was a fresh wound. Clara reacted with a mix of anger and attempts to guilt-trip me. How could you do this to us? To Lily? Me? I wanted to scream. I did this? The audacity was breathtaking. She tried delaying tactics, making demands, using the legal process as another tool for manipulation. The divorce finalization was surreal, a Zoom hearing. Just faces on a screen reciting legal jargon that dismantled 8 years of my life. It felt clinical, impersonal, utterly anticlimactic after the emotional earthquake I'd been living through. When it was over, I just sat there staring at the blank screen. Divorced. The words felt hollow. There was no relief, no freedom, just a vast, aching emptiness. A pit in my stomach that felt like it would swallow me whole. Marcus tried to get me out. Come on, man, let's grab a beer, celebrate something. Celebrate what? The death of my marriage? The fracturing of my family? I appreciated his effort, but I wasn't ready for celebratory anything. What I needed was space, physical space, mental space. I started hiking. Long, grueling hikes in the Cascades foothills. Up trails slick with rain and fallen leaves, pushing my body until my muscles screamed. The physical pain was a welcome distraction from the emotional agony. The cold mountain air filled my lungs, sharp and clean, a stark contrast to the suffocating weight in my chest. Surrounded by towering pines and the quiet damp earth, I felt small, insignificant, and strangely a little less overwhelmed by the enormity of my loss. Nature didn't judge, it just was. And I was just being in it, one step at a time. One afternoon, driving back from a hike near a lake, I saw it. A small, dilapidated cabin with a for sale sign leaning precariously in the overgrown yard. It looked forgotten, sad, like me. But as I stood there in the drizzle, looking at the peeling paint and sagging porch, something stirred. Not sadness, but possibility. It needed everything. It was a wreck. Perfect. A project. A place to build something new, something entirely my own from the ground up. A tangible focus for the scattered broken pieces of my life. I bought it. Buying the cabin was impulsive, maybe even foolish, given my financial situation post-divorce, but it felt right. It became my sanctuary, my proving ground. Every nail I hammered felt like driving out a bit of the anger. Every plank I sanded felt like smoothing the rough edges of my grief. Sawdust and paint fumes replaced the stale air of sorrow. My hands, once soft from coaching and then desk work, grew calloused and strong. It was hard, physical labor, and it was exactly what I needed. It grounded me. It tired me out in a good way, a way emotional exhaustion never could. Navigating co-parenting with Clara was a minefield. She used Lily as leverage, subtly at first, then more overtly. Last-minute schedule changes that messed up my plans, passive-aggressive texts about Lily needing something I hadn't provided, even if I wasn't supposed to have her that day, comparing my less-than-ideal temporary living situation to her seemingly stable new life, presumably with David. The constant low-level stress was draining. The worst part was the anxiety about Lily and the stalled adoption. We had agreed, signed the initial papers, but never completed the formal legal process for my adoption. Clara knew this. She started making veiled threats, hinting that my access to Lily wasn't guaranteed, that she could make things difficult because I had no legal standing as Lily's father. It was a cruel, calculated move, preying on my deepest fear, losing Lily. My love for Lily was pure, unconditional, the one constant in the wreckage. But Clara's manipulation tied that love to the pain of her betrayal, making every interaction about Lily a reminder of what I'd lost and how vulnerable I still was. Seeing Lily caught in the middle, looking confused or sad, tore me apart. I had to fight the urge to lash out at Clara, to protect Lily from the toxicity. Encounters with Clara in public were agonizing. Seeing her at Lily's school events or once, unexpectedly, at a grocery store near her new place. My heart would leap into my throat, a wave of nausea washing over me. The woman who had shared my bed, my life, my dreams, was now this person who inflicted pain and wielded our daughter like a weapon. I had to steel myself, plaster on a neutral expression, and get through the interaction without showing the turmoil raging inside. It was an exhausting performance. Every time it felt like setting my healing back days. That lingering physical longing, the memory of her scent, her touch, it would surface unexpectedly, a cruel reminder of a past that was gone, attached to a person who no longer existed, at least not to me. It was a constant internal battle, my heart clinging to the ghost of who she was, my head screaming the reality of who she had become. I needed guidance. Marcus was great for practical support and commiseration, but I needed something deeper. I thought of Coach Miller, my high school football coach, a man who embodied quiet strength and wisdom. He'd had his own share of life's hard knocks, but always met them with resilience and a steady gaze. I looked him up. He was retired now, living a quiet life not too far from where I was. I called him, a little awkwardly at first. It had been years, but he remembered me. We met for coffee at a small diner overlooking the Sound. I poured it all out, the betrayal, the divorce, the pain, the struggle with Clara and Lily, the feeling of being adrift and powerless. He listened patiently, his eyes steady and kind. When I finished, there was a long silence, broken only by the clinking of mugs. He finally spoke, his voice low and gravelly. "Ethan, life's a lot like a football game. You get knocked down, hard. Sometimes you get blindsided by a hit you never saw coming." He paused, taking a slow sip of his coffee. "You can lie there on the turf, feeling sorry for yourself, replaying the hit, or you can get back up." He talked about focusing on the fundamentals. Control the controllable, Ethan. You can't control what Clara did. You can't control what she does now. You can't control the legal system, not entirely. But you can control your effort. You can control your attitude. You can control how you respond. He looked out at the grey water. "You're building that cabin, right? That's controllable. That's effort. That's building something solid when everything else feels like shifting sand." He understood the pain tied to Lily. "That's a different kind of hit, son. A heart hit. The hardest kind. You love her. That's the most important thing. Legal papers, they matter, yes, but they don't define your love. They don't define who you are to her. Focus on being there, being consistent, being her rock. That's your effort. That's controllable." His words were a balm, practical and profound. They didn't magically fix everything, but they gave me a framework, a direction. Get up, control the controllable, focus my effort. Inspired by Coach Miller, I threw myself even harder into the cabin project. It wasn't just a house, it was a physical manifestation of my healing, piece by piece. I learned plumbing, electrical, insulation. I watched YouTube tutorials, read books, asked questions at the hardware store. Every completed task, no matter how small, was a victory against the chaos that Clara had unleashed. The cabin started to take shape, slowly transforming from a derelict shell into something that felt like a home. My home. As the cabin progressed, so did I, albeit in fits and starts. There were still days the pain was a heavy cloak, days I just wanted to curl up and disappear. But the good days started to outnumber the bad ones. I was finding joy in the small things again. The smell of fresh-cut wood, the warmth of the sun on my face after a long hike, Jack's enthusiastic greeting at the end of the day. Marcus kept checking in. He suggested I try dating again. The idea felt foreign, like trying to speak a language I'd forgotten. Who would want a man who was divorced, still carrying scars, with a complicated relationship with his daughter? I felt marked, like my past was a scarlet letter, visible to everyone, but I decided to try. Baby steps. I met someone online, Sarah. She seemed nice, independent, intelligent. We talked for a while before meeting. I was upfront about my situation, divorced, have a daughter I adore, navigating co-parenting. She seemed understanding. We went on a few dates. It was pleasant. Awkward sometimes, navigating the conversation around my past, but there was potential. A flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't permanently broken. Then, after our third date, she pulled back. She said she wasn't ready, still healing from her own breakup. 3 months ago, she mentioned, which felt incredibly fast compared to my 2 years of turmoil. But she also admitted she was wary of my situation. The divorce, the fact that I had a daughter, the complexity of that relationship, it felt like a punch to the gut. Not because I was heartbroken over her, but because her reaction confirmed my fear. I was marked. Even though I hadn't done anything wrong, my life was now too complicated, too messy for some people. It felt incredibly unfair. If I was honest about my past, I scared people away. If I hid it, I'd be dishonest. It was a catch-22. The sting lasted a few days, a reminder that the ripples of Clara's actions extended far beyond her and me. Months turned into a year, then 18 months. The cabin was nearing completion. It was rustic, solid, filled with the scent of pine and my own hard work. It felt like a physical representation of my internal state. Still a little rough around the edges, maybe not perfect, but strong and standing on its own foundation. My relationship with Lily continued to be the most important and sometimes the most painful part of my life. She was growing up, navigating middle school, becoming her own person. Our time together was less frequent, dictated by Clara's schedule and Lily's own burgeoning social life. I cherished every moment, trips to the park, movie nights, just hanging out at my still under renovation cabin. But the handovers were often tense, brief exchanges with Clara that left a bitter taste. She still used the adoption status as a subtle threat, a reminder of her power. It was a constant, low-level anxiety humming beneath the surface of my love for Lily. Coach Miller's words stayed with me. Control the controllable. Be her rock. I focused on being present, being reliable, being a safe harbor for Lily. I listened more than I talked, especially about Clara. I made sure our time together was about us, an oasis away from the conflict. It wasn't always easy. There were times I wanted to scream at Clara, to fight for more time, to demand the legal recognition I felt I deserved as Lily's father. But I held back, remembering the toll a protracted legal battle would take on all of us, especially Lily. I chose peace, or at least the path that seemed least likely to cause more damage. The indifference towards Clara started to creep in slowly, almost imperceptibly. It wasn't a sudden switch, but a gradual erosion of the emotional hold she had on me. The anger faded into a dull ache, then into nothing. The longing became less frequent, less intense. Seeing her no longer sent me spiraling into despair or rage. She was just Clara, Lily's mother. A person I had a complicated history with, but whose emotional power over me was waning. It was a relief so profound it felt like shedding a heavy skin. But the anxiety about the adoption status, the vulnerability of my position remained. It was a knot in my stomach that tightened whenever Clara hinted at making things difficult. I knew, logically, that my bond with Lily was strong, built on years of love and care. But the legal uncertainty was a constant threat, a sword hanging over my head. Then came the day the sword felt like it might fall. Clara called, her tone unusually firm. She was planning a trip, she said, a long one, potentially out of state, and she wanted to take Lily. She needed me to agree to something financial related to the divorce settlement, something I felt was unfair. And she linked it directly to my access to Lily. "You know you don't have any legal rights, Ethan," she said, her voice cold. "If you want to make sure you still see her, you need to be reasonable." My blood ran cold. This was it. The threat made explicit. She was using Lily, using my love for her, to get what she wanted. The urge to fight, to call a lawyer, to finally push for that formal adoption was overwhelming. I wanted to stand up to her, to protect my right to be Lily's father in the eyes of the law. But then I thought about Lily. A legal battle would be brutal. Depositions, courtrooms, lawyers dissecting our lives, potentially forcing Lily to choose sides or be interviewed about her parents. It would be traumatic, dragging out the conflict and exposing her to more pain, and there was no guarantee I'd win. The legal system is complex, and my lack of formal adoption put me at a significant disadvantage. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. The cabin, solid and warm around me, felt like it was swaying. Fight? Or what? Accept the unfairness? Prioritize peace over principle? Coach Miller's words echoed in my mind. Control the controllable. Choose your battles. A legal fight was a battle I couldn't fully control, a battle that would inevitably hurt Lily. My love for Lily, my presence in her life, that was controllable. That was where I needed to focus my effort. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, maybe even harder than leaving Clara the first time. I called Clara back. My voice was steady, devoid of the anger and desperation I felt churning inside. I told her I wouldn't agree to her demand, but I also told her I wouldn't pursue legal action regarding Lily's adoption at this time. I wouldn't put Lily through a court battle. I would find other ways to be her father. My presence, my love, my consistency, those were the things that mattered. She was surprised, perhaps expecting me to cave or to explode. She huffed, but the immediate threat receded. I had chosen peace, for Lily and for myself, even at the cost of formal legal recognition. It was a sacrifice, a painful acceptance of a reality I hated, but it felt like the right path. In the weeks and months that followed, my indifference towards Clara solidified completely. The threat was gone, replaced by a quiet determination to build my relationship with Lily on my own terms, independent of Clara's approval or legal leverage. She was just a hurdle to navigate for pickups and drop-offs, a name on a co-parenting app. The emotional cord was finally, truly severed. The cabin became my haven. I finished the main living space, built a small deck overlooking the lake. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Every corner held the memory of my own labor, my own resilience. It was a physical testament to the fact that I could rebuild, that I could create something beautiful and strong out of wreckage. My relationship with Lily found a new rhythm. Without the constant anxiety about the legal status looming over us, our time felt more relaxed, more genuine. We established new traditions: Saturday morning pancake breakfasts at the cabin, kayaking on the lake, building a fire in the pit I'd dug. She loved the cabin, the quiet, the feeling of being away from everything. Our bond deepened, built not on legal documents, but on shared moments, inside jokes, and unwavering love. There were still challenges, of course: teenage mood swings, scheduling conflicts, the inevitable awkwardness of divorced parents. But the core was solid. I was her dad. She was my daughter. That simple truth was more powerful than any legal paper. 2 years have passed since the divorce was finalized. 2 years since my world imploded. I'm sitting on the deck of my cabin, watching the sun dip below the trees, casting long shadows across the still water. Jack is asleep at my feet, snoring softly. The air is cool and smells of pine and damp earth. It's quiet, a good quiet. The pain is still there sometimes, a faint echo in the chambers of my heart, a dull ache that reminds me of what was lost. But it no longer consumes me. It's like a scar, a reminder of a past wound, but no longer actively bleeding. I think about Clara sometimes, but only in the context of Lily's schedule or a brief, necessary text exchange. There's no anger, no longing, just indifference. She is a stranger who shares a history with me, nothing more. I haven't rushed into another relationship. The failed attempt with Sarah was a lesson learned. I needed to heal fully, to know that I was choosing someone new from a place of wholeness, not from a void left by my past. I'm open to it now, though, open to the possibility whenever it may come. I'm not defined by my past, or by Clara's betrayal, or by the legal status of my relationship with Lily. I am defined by my resilience, my capacity to love, and the life I have rebuilt here in this quiet corner of the world. My relationship with Lily isn't perfect, but it's real. It's ours. We navigate the complexities together. I'm still not her legal father on paper, but it doesn't matter as much anymore. I am present, I am consistent, I am her dad, and she is my daughter. That is enough. I look out at the lake, the sky painted in hues of orange and purple. It wasn't the life I planned. It wasn't the future I envisioned. But it is my life. It is my future. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like home. The cabin project took up most of my free time and energy for the first year and a half, a welcome distraction, but also a genuine passion. I learned skills I never thought I would, fixing everything from leaky pipes to faulty wiring. There's a deep satisfaction that comes from physical labor, from seeing tangible progress. It was a stark contrast to the intangible, frustrating work of emotional healing, where progress felt invisible for long stretches. The cabin was proof that I could still build, still create, even after everything had been torn down. I installed a large picture window in the living room, specifically oriented to capture the sunset over the lake. Sitting there now, watching the colours bleed across the sky, feels like a reward for all the pain and effort. My job remained just that, a job. It paid the bills, allowed me to buy the cabin and fund the renovations, and provided for Lily when she was with me. But it didn't feed my soul the way coaching had. I started thinking about what came next. Maybe I could use the skills I learned at the cabin. Maybe I could find a way to combine my love for building with something else. I wasn't sure yet, but the possibility was there. The future felt less like a terrifying unknown and more like an empty canvas, waiting for me to decide what to paint. Marcus would visit the cabin sometimes. He'd bring over beer and pizza, marvel at the progress I'd made, and just hang out. He didn't push me to talk about Clara anymore unless I brought it up. He respected the boundaries I'd built around that part of my life. He was just a good friend, steady and reliable. His quiet support meant the world. He'd seen me at my absolute lowest, and he just waited patiently for me to climb back out. Coach Miller became a more regular presence too. He'd call sometimes, or I'd drive over to his place. We'd talk about everything and nothing. He'd share stories from his coaching days, metaphors about perseverance, teamwork, and getting back up after a hit. He never explicitly asked about Clara or the legal situation with Lily after that one conversation, but his advice was always applicable to my struggles. "Ethan," he'd say, leaning back in his chair, "resilience isn't about not getting knocked down. It's about how fast you get back up and what you learn while you're down there." He taught me that healing wasn't about forgetting the pain, but about integrating it, learning from it, and using it to build a stronger foundation for the future. Lily was navigating the complexities of adolescence. Her voice had deepened. She was taller than me now, and her interests were shifting. Video games were still a common ground. We'd play Rocket League online sometimes, a digital space where we could just be dad and daughter, free from the real-world complications. She was getting good, really good. I was fiercely proud of her, of the smart, kind, resilient young woman she was becoming, despite everything. Our visits were precious. Sometimes it was just a few hours, sometimes a weekend. I made sure the cabin was a place where she felt comfortable, a place that felt like her second home. We decorated her room together, chose colours and furniture that she liked. It was important to me that she felt she belonged here, that this was her space too. She'd bring friends over sometimes, and seeing her laughing, showing off the cabin, felt like another small victory. Clara remained a distant figure. Our communication was minimal, mostly via text or the co-parenting app, strictly about Lily's schedule or needs. The tension was still there, a thin wire stretched between us, but it no longer hummed with the same intensity. I had built my wall of indifference high and strong. Seeing her face-to-face was rare, usually at school events or soccer games. It was awkward, polite, and brief. Her parents were no longer in my life. They'd sided with Clara, which hurt initially, but eventually just became another piece of the past I had to let go of. I thought about the marked feeling sometimes, the way Sarah had reacted. It stung, but it wasn't a crippling blow anymore. I understood that my life was complicated. I had a past, a daughter with a complex family situation. Not everyone would be able or willing to navigate that. And that was okay. I wasn't desperate for a relationship anymore. I was content in my own life, with my cabin, my dog, my friends, and my precious time with Lily. If the right person came along, great. If not, I would still be whole. The dreams about Clara had faded almost entirely. The vivid, painful nightmares of her scent and touch were replaced by mundane dreams, or no dreams at all. The last time I had a dream involving her, it was strange, detached, like watching actors on a stage. It held no emotional power over me. That, more than anything, was a sign of how far I had come. Building the cabin wasn't just about having a place to live. It was about building a new identity. I wasn't just the man who was cheated on, the man who lost his family. I was a builder, a problem solver, someone capable of creating something solid and beautiful out of nothing. This sense of accomplishment bled into other areas of my life. I felt more confident, more grounded. The void that Clara had left was slowly, steadily being filled, not by another person, but by my own efforts, my own interests, my own rediscovered sense of self-worth. I even picked up writing again, something I hadn't done since college. Just short stories at first, little vignettes inspired by the nature around me, or sometimes processing emotions I couldn't articulate any other way. It was another outlet, another way to shape chaos into something meaningful. There were still moments of vulnerability, times when the weight of everything would press down. Seeing other families together, the easy rhythm of intact units, could still bring a pang of sadness. But it wasn't the soul-crushing despair of the early days. It was a quiet ache, a reminder of a path not taken, but not a regret that paralyzed me. I had made the best choices I could with the information and circumstances I had. Lily's teenage years brought new challenges, as expected. She was independent, sometimes moody, often glued to her phone or her friends. My time with her became even more precious, and sometimes frustratingly brief. There were days I felt like I was constantly reaching out, only to be met with busy or short, monosyllabic replies. It was the reality of parenting a teenager, I knew, but it still hurt sometimes, especially given the limited time I had with her compared to Clara. One evening, after a particularly brief and non-committal conversation with Lily on the phone, the familiar ache returned. Not the searing pain of betrayal, but the deep, heavy sorrow tied to the fear of losing connection with her, of fading into the background of her life. It was a pain linked directly to the divorce, to the fractured family, to the fact that my time with her was now a negotiation, not a given. I called Coach Miller. I didn't even have to explain much. He heard it in my voice, the sadness, the weariness. I talked about Lily, about the struggle to stay connected, about how much it hurt, and how that hurt felt intertwined with the original pain of the divorce. He listened for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice gentle but firm. "Ethan," he said, "that love for Lily, it's the strongest thing you have. It's pure. But you're letting the pain from Clara's mess infect it. Every time you connect with Lily, you're also touching that wound." He paused. "Look, I'm not telling you to quit on her. Never that. But you need to protect yourself too. You've worked so hard to heal. Is the pain you feel after every interaction with Lily, the pain that comes from the circumstance of the divorce, worth the toll it takes on your peace?" His words hit me hard. Was he saying I should distance myself from Lily? It felt like a betrayal of my deepest commitment, but he wasn't saying that. He was saying I needed to find a way to separate the love for Lily from the pain caused by Clara. To be present for Lily without letting the ghost of the past relationship poison the experience. It was a nuanced, difficult piece of advice. How do you untangle love and pain when they've been so tightly woven together? I wrestled with his words for days. It felt counterintuitive. My love for Lily was a source of strength, wasn't it? Yes. But it was also the most vulnerable point, the place where the past could still inflict pain. Maybe it was about managing my expectations, about accepting that my role in her life would be different than it would have been in an intact family, and finding peace within those limitations. Maybe it was about focusing solely on the joy of the connection when it happened, and not dwelling on the circumstances that made it less frequent or more complicated. I didn't have an easy answer. It felt like another layer of healing, a deeper cut to address. The initial wound from Clara had scarred over, but the pain associated with the altered landscape of my life, particularly my relationship with Lily, was still raw sometimes. It was a reminder that healing isn't linear, and it's rarely complete in the way you expect. But even with that lingering ache, the overall trajectory was clear. I was better. So much better than the broken man who walked out of that apartment 2 years ago. I had rebuilt my life piece by piece. I had a home I loved, a sense of purpose in my work, both the paid kind and the cabin kind, supportive friends, and a deep, unwavering connection with my daughter, even if it was on different terms than I'd imagined. I learned that indifference isn't the opposite of love or hate. It's the absence of emotional investment. It's recognizing that someone no longer has the power to make or break your day, and that was a powerful form of freedom. Clara no longer occupied rent-free space in my head or my heart. She was just a fact of my life, like the weather or traffic. The cabin was finished now, truly finished. The last coat of paint was on the trim, the furniture was in place, the deck was sealed. It was small, cozy, filled with light and the smell of wood. It felt like a reflection of my internal state. Calm, solid, peaceful. It was a place of quiet strength, a testament to what could be built after everything fell apart. My relationship with Lily continued to evolve. There were still moments of teenage distance, but also moments of profound connection. A shared laugh over a silly meme, a deep conversation about her fears for high school, a quiet afternoon spent reading side by side on the deck. I focused on being present, truly present, in those moments, soaking